organisation called CME, which runs a kind of new metro festival called Norwich, Sound & Vision, which operates across the city in 10 venues over 3 days with a conference as well. And the other thing I do is I run a music sync licensing agency called Portmanteau, which represents labels, publishers, artists from, at the moment, mostly across Europe, for license to TV, film, video games and ad campaigns around the world, mostly in the US.
My name's Dave Haynes, and I work for a company called SoundCloud, and we're the biggest platform on the web for audio. So we have 8 million users, and that's international, so it's we're open in all markets. It's free for anyone to set up an account, but we also have, you can pay to use the service as well. And what we do is, if you're a musician, then we allow you to easily upload your music files onto the service, and then either share those privately with your contacts or your colleagues or your fellow musicians, or you can upload them publicly and then embed those into your Facebook streams or put them onto your social networks or your own artist website. So yeah, really being kind of that YouTube but for your music. But we also, SoundCloud isn't just music, it's really for any types of sounds, and actually the biggest user that we have in India is a talk show host in Chennai who is uploading, he does these 3-minute prank calls on the radio, and he uploads those to SoundCloud, puts them on Facebook, and he gets up to 250,000 listens of that piece of audio when it gets embedded in their Facebook stream. So yeah, really SoundCloud is just a platform for audio.
Hi, my name's Joe, and I work for a company called Music Glue. Music Glue is a London-based music technology company where we provide platform to artists, venues, promoters, festivals, comedians, authors, various other people. We allow them to monetize their fan base, so they can set up tickets, sell tickets, digital merchandise. We can also power websites and various other things, so that's what we do.
Okay, great. Well, I thought a good place to start today would be to explore what it is to be an entrepreneur, and I guess it kind of might differ from person to person. So if we just go around, again starting with Adrian, what is being entrepreneurial to you?
Well, I think from my perspective, for my two businesses, although they're very different, I think essentially it's just about identifying an opportunity that you can, or a need that you can fulfill. I think that's it. The Portmanteau began because I was involved in licensing my own music, or music from my own record label, to visual media across the world. Quite successful at doing that, but there was quite a lot of labels across Europe that didn't have the relationships or were involved with agencies that were US based that didn't seem to really be working for them. And so it seemed a UK based agent with the sort of trust of the labels and publishers there pitching to the US seemed to be a model that worked, and it's certainly been the case. Norwich Sound & Vision is come out of I suppose more of a kind of a social need, really, that it's very much about developing artists and businesses in the east of England. So I suppose that's more something I'm kind of passionate about, and it's passion and bloody mindedness, to be honest, that's driven that initiative so far. So yeah, for me that's kind of it.
Dave?
Yeah, so I think, I would tend to agree with Adrian's first comment. It's definitely, for me, I think the best entrepreneurs are the people who are, well, first of all, they're very passionate about what they do, but usually the most successful ones are those who've identified an opportunity, or they're scratching their own itch. There's something that they wanted to do and it just wasn't available in the market, and they have this feeling that other people would want to do it as well. So that's definitely one. The other is probably kind of spotting bigger trends and opportunities as well. So again, a lot of the successful entrepreneurs nowadays, and like with the web as well, it's about disrupting existing industries. So it might not be something new, it might be something that people are already doing, but then finding a way to improve, or make something new, or like really redefine a certain sector. So it could be something like doing a festival in India that's taking a different approach. But it could be something completely new that hasn't been done before.
I think an entrepreneur, someone who has a vision and can see the potential in a product or a business or an idea, someone who's flexible enough to change and flow where they need to. I think there's someone that generally won't let a lack of knowledge or experience get in the way of them trying to do something, and then being willing to learn everything they need to learn along the way. And I think, like a case in point, I was talking to John yesterday, who was speaking earlier. He's very similar to my boss, where not only do they run the company, but they also sort out the payroll and the tax and the employee contracts and all these different things, because they want to understand every little bit of how their company works. So that longer term, as the company grows and you hire other people, you have an expertise and a knowledge into every bit of your business.
I just want to add actually that the one thing that all entrepreneurs probably should be is very goal-driven or mission-driven. They should have a bigger picture in mind, a destination. They want to take something from here to there. Oftentimes, being an entrepreneur, a big part of that will be commercially driven and money driven. So you want to do this, and you do ultimately, want to do it for commercial reasons. But I think it's still really important to remember that you don't necessarily need to be money driven to be an entrepreneur. That helps. I think you can. There is a new generation of social entrepreneurs as well, who are doing things from a slightly different perspective. It probably still involves making enough money to keep that thing going, but I think across both more commercially minded social entrepreneurs, they're still very much driven by one kind of higher goal.
And Joe, I guess with Music Glue, it's quite a sort of very new and kind of almost it's kind of changing the way the industry works. How did you identify that gap in the market or that opportunity, and then how did you kind of develop Music Glue from there?
So our company set up about 4.5 years ago, and the initial idea was my boss Mark. He was from a financial background and did very well in finance, but he's from New Zealand, and he was working with a band in New Zealand that were a multi-platinum band called Good Shirt, and they had he'd moved to London, and they came to London, and he was like, "Oh, we should give away a song, because we know there's lots of fans in London." This would have been 6 or 7 years ago. We should give a song away to get some data and find out where these fans are, get an email address and a location, then we can invite them to the tour. So he went to speak to EMI, who owned the kind of global deal for the band, but hadn't really done anything in the UK with them, and they just said, "No, not interested, sorry, blah, blah, blah." But I think at that point, and they went ahead with the show and showed it very well, but I think at that point my boss saw an opportunity to where things were going, a shift from the major record labels having all the power to potentially things moving into artists being able to contact their fans directly, sell things to them directly, using services like SoundCloud or iTunes or Music Glue, like tickets, whatever it is. And I think he spotted that shift early. And then I suppose, in regards to what I was saying earlier about being willing to be flexible and evolve, our initial concept was file sharing, legitimate file sharing. So you're in a band, and people are stealing music on Pirate Bay and LimeWire and things. So we had a legitimate DRM system where you could upload some music, there'd be a video, and if someone found it on Pirate Bay, it would say, "Hi, my name's..." If you're going to steal this, at least donate some money, or at least give us an email address for stuff. So it was, that was the original concept, which worked quite well, except that the major labels wouldn't do it for obvious reasons. And then from our company point of view, we've been evolving ever since, looking at, I think the initial idea that there was an opportunity with file sharing and data gathering on fans kind of started to open our minds to other possibilities, which is what we do now as a company.
So where have you taken that now? So initially you started out by giving away tracks. Now how does the company work?
So currently we have about 75 venues music venues in the UK that we have a free-to-use event management system which allows you to set up tickets, plan your events, and it also powers your website with content and listings. We have about 30, 40 promoters using that. We've got several internationally kind of renowned bands using that ticketing system to book their own shows, go on tours. So we work with Mumford & Sons, Boy Bear in Australia, a bunch of bands like that. And we have maybe 20 or 30 artists now that have their entire e-commerce platform and website powered by Musical.ly. Where they're selling digital, they're selling tickets, they're selling tickets to digital and merch bundles, they're selling t-shirts, they've got their blog, they've got SoundCloud players on there and various things. So that's where we kind of evolved to currently, and we're also looking to grow longer term.
So the emphasis there, I guess, is on empowerment of musicians and bypassing some of the traditional music industry. And I guess that must have kind of really annoyed a lot of the old traditional music industry, but yet you still kind of need, I guess, to interact with those people. How have you kind of navigated that kind of situation?
Try and be delicate when you can, and tough at other times. I think it's helped over the last 4 years since I've been doing this. The attitude of the major labels has changed to so they're still very arrogant, but it's changed a lot. And I think across the UK anyway, there's a lot more understanding about artists having power to sell things. I think that idea when we started the company was very new, whereas now I think it's more accepted industry-wide. And also the same on the live side of things. Most promoters you talk to now, like Tom who was here earlier, 4 or 5 years ago, if you would have contacted them and said, we want to sell tickets on behalf of Imogen Heap or whatever it is, they wouldn't have really understood why you do it. Whereas now, there's far more acceptance that companies and artists want to sell ticket allocations. So I think it's just a lot of people are doing it, and now it's kind of just changed
more
society.
standard. Yeah. So Dave, I guess you also run a digital platform. How did you identify the opportunity for SoundCloud?
Well, yeah, I mean, it started actually through what I was saying, about scratching an itch. I wasn't one of the founders of the company, although I was in the founding team. But so the two founders, one was a sound engineer, one was actually a musician and a technologist at the same time. And they were quite often sending sound files back and forth to each other. So they would have to upload a track to YouSend or a server somewhere and give a username and password. And they were like, well, hang on, really we should be using the web to do this in a much more easy way. And I think once they started, looking at that and starting to put the technology together, they soon realised actually if we did this could be really useful in a much wider context. So yeah, it really was kind of scratching that itch, and it's kind of developed over time. And I think again, although SoundCloud started off more as a music platform, again the way we were kind of looking at the business was, then we started seeing people uploading like voice clips or different types of sounds to the platform. So it's like, oh, okay, well hang on, this is another bigger opportunity. So it was adapting to that and making the vision very large.
How did you kind of determine what your business model would be?
Yeah, well, we were always very much more focused on the creators. So at SoundCloud, we really focus all of our users, all the marketing that we do, all the features that we build are really creator-driven. And I guess that was from their backgrounds of, being, I'm the person using this product, we should build it in that way. So yeah, I guess the actual business kind of grew out of that, and rather than having a consumer model where we might sell a subscription to a fan, or we might put adverts next to people's content, we really thought let's build a platform that people would use more of a tool and actually be prepared to pay for that tool. So most of our 8 million users actually use the service for free, but then the ones that do get the most value out of it, or they're using it in their professional or daily lives, they just upgrade extra features and more space.
I mean, I'd say one thing with our company is, until about a year ago, there were only 3 of us. We're up to 11 now. And we definitely have core values in regards to the company about kind of ethically minded and transparent, and we want to be very, very honest in regards to paying artists and venues on time and letting them know exactly what they've earned, etc. But I also think we've been incredibly user-led, and users, whether they be venues or managers or artists, we're constantly listening to feedback. And I think, when you said, when you've started noticing different sounds being used, the best way is when you have something that other people can use, and then they go, oh, well, maybe you can do that, and you go, oh, I have no idea you can do that, and that kind of starts to fold into where you're going, And I find that really interesting, and for us, as we bring more and more tools and various parts to our platform, kind of the exciting thing, I think, is seeing what people do when they go, almost the way the text message became big. It was just an add-on that people kind of understood the power of, and the companies didn't.
Yeah, I guess that's the case with anything digital. You've got to keep evolving it because things change so quickly, and I think we all know kind of the demise of MySpace. And so I don't think any platform is kind of safe. I think you constantly have to react and speak to the people, your audience, your consumer base. Adrian, with regard to Norwich Sound and Vision, obviously you've talked about that as a project of passion, driven by passion. How did that come about?
It's kind of a conversation in a bar that got out of hand, really. But it was, going to events like Great Escape, Liverpool Sound City, Inner City, and South by Southwest, and sort of realising that that Norwich as a city is a good host to that kind of event and would be very useful to the musicians and companies that existed there, but also the sort of wider sort of creative community in the east of England. There was clearly a need for them to get more engaged, more connected with opportunities worldwide as well as domestically. And so it was just about kind of putting something there that had never been there before and trying to sort of bring people together. So I just called in lots of favours, sort of pitched the idea to lots of people, and just didn't shut up about it for a year really until it happened, and continues to be that kind of model really.
And how do you finance that? How have you raised the finance? Is that through ticket sales or is that through funding?
It's a combination of ticket sales, some public funding, some sponsorship, but it's all, it's gone. There's not been any kind of which is what we really wanted and actually were promised from local government at the beginning, but there's been no sort of significant investment to really kind of go to town, so it's been very much sort of increments of little pieces of funding here and there. So the whole model and the success of it really has been based around the success of the partnership. So we brought in venues and promoters and cinemas and theatres and got them all to kind of work together, and the BBC are very involved as well and programme their own events. So we've kind of managed to create a big festival with quite little resource, really.
Okay, in terms of how you grow your businesses and how you, because obviously you guys have got digital businesses, they're online so anybody can access them, but of course you need to kind of reach your audiences and make them aware of what you do. And Dave, you've got presence in quite a lot of countries. How do you raise awareness of SoundCloud?
Well, actually, we don't really do that much marketing. I guess the thing that we've focused on the most was just building the best possible product. I know that sounds silly, but and the product almost sells itself. So very early on, we had a core group of users who were very active and visible in their communities, and then it was almost kind of replicating, because if somebody was using SoundCloud, then you would see your friend using it, and then you would start using it. So, and there is very little barrier to entry to using SoundCloud, because you have the free account. Anyone in the room could just go up and sign up for an account. So I think it was saying, finding the people who would find the most use out of it, and then they would go and shout about it. One other thing that we do, almost in replacement from marketing, I think the best products nowadays are the products where you don't need to shout about it, and you can get your own users to go and sell it on your behalf. One thing that we invest heavily in SoundCloud is having the best possible community team. And with a lot of other companies, they think of their community or support team as just the people who upload a post to Facebook or take in support requests. Like, we spent a lot of time really kind of developing our user base so that they will passionately go and tell other users about it. One instance, we actually went down the site, went down for a day, and rather than our users, you know, being angry and that being a really negative effect, those users were actually kind of, you know, cheering us on, and when we went back on, were giving us loads of support. So yeah, I think definitely in today's age, things can spread so well. People have the tools to spread your own message. So whatever business it is that you're doing, like, make sure that you're not just shouting about it. Make sure you're equipping the people who are going to be the super fans. I think this is the same for an artist today. If you can identify those 1,000 people who are your biggest advocates, if you can get those people and say, how do we get them to send that message and spread it, then they'll do the job for you, and you don't need to do that much in the way of marketing.
Joe, is that the same with music though, in terms of kind of